My wife spent Valentine's Day with my younger brother and missed my farewell party. But I wasn't angry at all. Even when she tried to explain, I graciously made up excuses for her. I had already come to terms with her favoritism. Still, she grew more uneasy, asking if I would leave her because of this. And I didn't tell her. In just 3 days, I'd be leaving for a long-term teaching assignment in the remote Northwest Mountains, and the divorce papers were already sitting in the wardrobe. But when I stepped aside and gave my place to my brother, she showed no sign of joy for finally getting what she wanted. Instead, she went mad searching for any trace of me. Anyone else signing up for the Northwest Teaching Support Mission? Last call. I am, I shouted. Outside the compound, I ran breathlessly and finally managed to submit the application just in time. Thank you. I'm okay with any location. I'll go wherever I'm assigned. Lisa glanced at the form in her hand, then looked at me. George, what are you doing? Joining in on this chaos? This kind of teaching mission, once you're out there, you won't be back for 3 to 5 years. A lot of people end up settling there permanently. If I approve this and send you off to some godforsaken corner of the Northwest, your Willow's gonna lose her mind. She'll tear through the entire military district looking for you. Don't stir up trouble here. Lisa pushed the form back to me half-jokingly, giving me a couple of theatrical shoves to get me moving. But I firmly pushed the form back toward her. I'm going no matter what. Willow won't be able to stop me. Please don't tell her just yet. I want to talk to her myself. Maybe it was the look in my eyes, but after a moment's hesitation, Lisa scribbled my name down. Let me be blunt first, this won't be easy. You and Instructor Lou have been so close for years, and she's been protecting you like you're the apple of her eye. You really think she'll let you go that easily? Don't get your hopes up too much. I lowered my eyes and silently repeated her words. It was true. Willow treated me very well, even exceptionally so. Everyone in the compound was jealous of us. I used to think we were truly in love, until this morning when I was cleaning and accidentally found a metal box hidden in the deepest corner of our wardrobe. Inside were 42 unsent letters, all addressed to my brother, Makoto. Only then did I realize I was never her first choice. The man she'd once declared she was determined to marry was never me. It was only because my face looked vaguely like Makoto's that she chose me instead. I barely responded to Lisa's words and headed home. I wasn't expecting to run into Willow just outside the compound, pushing her bicycle. 2 thick quilts were tightly strapped to the back. In the exact red brocade 100 Suns pattern I'd casually mentioned wanting. Where did you rush off to? Good timing. Come feel if the quilts are warm enough. The other night you were muttering about your feet being cold, so I had new ones made for you. I looked at the quilts, but my heart was filled with bitterness. Why go to such lengths? How could she think of another man in her heart yet treat me like I was the only one that mattered? She asked me, "What are you thinking about? You've been zoning out since just now." Huh. I snapped back to reality and shook my head. Nothing really. Just, my parents wrote to say my brother's coming here for something and might drop by. My voice trailed off. My fingers clenched tightly around the quilt. But Willow didn't notice my change in demeanor. From the moment she heard Makoto was coming, her eyes lit up with a soft gleam. Makoto's coming? Why didn't you tell me sooner? All right, you head home first. I'll go out and get some groceries. There's not enough meat or vegetables at home. I remember he likes fish, so I'll buy some too. Willow chatted to herself, already planning to give Makoto the sunniest room in the north wing. I didn't say anything for a long while. Finally, I smiled faintly. You seem very happy that Makoto's coming. Willow realized she might have sounded too excited. She paused, then took my arm and teased. He's your brother. Shouldn't I care about him too? What? Are you jealous? No. I shook my head, pulling away from her touch. If you're going shopping, go now. It's getting dark, the road's not easy. All right, I'll go now. That night, Willow didn't get home until very late. I was half asleep and urged her to go to bed quickly. So it wasn't until the next morning that I noticed the 2 red 100 Suns pattern quilts had been swapped out for blue ones, my brother's favorite color. No wonder she got back so late. I let out a bitter chuckle. A sour lump caught in my throat. I leaned halfway out the window, but didn't see Willow anywhere. What I did get, though, was a wave of teasing from the neighborhood aunties nearby. "Whatcha looking for? Trying to catch sight of your instructor wife first thing in the morning." "Huh? Oh, let me tell you. Yesterday, Instructor Lou came to my corner shop and grabbed malted milk candy like it was free. I asked her if she could even finish that much, and you know what she said? 'My little brother has a sweet tooth, so I'm stocking up for him.' George, this kid's really lucky marrying someone as capable and attentive as Instructor Lou." The women all burst into laughter, chiming in as Aunt Lou led the gossip about how incredibly good Willow was to me. But my heart had already turned cold. Her little brother. Wasn't she talking about Makoto? I quietly shut the window. My eyes landed again on those two large blue quilts. Without a word, I shoved them into the wardrobe and headed out. On the way to the factory, I ran into Lisa, who was off duty, and called out to me, "Hey, I was just looking for you. There's going to be a teaching support seminar in the neighboring district in a couple of days. If you're serious about heading to the Northwest, you'll need to attend." I nodded quickly and noted the time and place. Then I started mentally calculating the days and asked around about transportation to the neighboring district, only to find out the vehicles were all undergoing maintenance. Nowhere was reachable for the time being. With no choice, I brought it up briefly during dinner with Willow. "By the way, there's something going on in the neighboring district in a couple of days. I might need to head over there." Surprisingly, she didn't even look up. "All right, good timing, there's not much going on in the unit that day. I'll drive you." But why the sudden interest in the neighboring district? After thinking for a moment, I chose not to tell the truth. "It's nothing. Lisa said there's a newly opened bookstore over there. Thought I'd check it out." "All right. Oh, and someone in the team who's good at reading the weather said we might get heavy snow soon. Be sure to dress warm. If you see anything you like over there, just buy it. Don't worry about the money." Our conversation ended with a casual from me. I never did ask why the quilt patterns had changed or where the candies had gone. I knew some questions, no matter how many times they're asked, will only humiliate you more. It's better to wait for the right moment to completely end a relationship that was a mistake from the very beginning. The day of the seminar, light snowflakes really did begin to fall from the sky. Willow drove me to the town center, and I got out alone. "I want to stop by the stationery store after browsing the bookstore." "You're not interested in that stuff anyway. No need to wait with me," I said. Willow checked her watch and replied, "All right. Tom asked me to pick up something from the department store too, so I'll come back in 2 hours. Don't wander too far." She couldn't help but give a few more reminders before driving off. I stood there watching the car disappear into the alleyway. Then I turned around and walked off in a completely different direction. The seminar went smoothly. It finalized the list of selected teachers and the departure schedule. I checked the calendar. 15 days left. Enough time to settle everything. Judging it was about the right time, I arrived at the spot where Willow had agreed to pick me up. Winter nights came early, and by the time I stepped out, it was already dark. What started as scattered flurries had turned into thick, heavy snow, piling deep along the roadsides. But Willow never showed up. With no other choice, I used a public phone to call her office. Someone picked up but told me Willow wasn't there. The instructor? She came back for a bit earlier but then took a call and left in a hurry. "We thought it was from you." "I'm not sure where she went. Maybe find a place to wait. If she returns, I'll let her know you called." "All right, thank you," I answered softly, hung up the phone, and looked at the swirling snow. Because of the weather, all the shops in town had closed early, and the shuttle buses had stopped running to avoid getting stuck en route. It was dozens of kilometers back home. If Willow didn't come, I'd have to walk. I decided to start walking back along the way I came. Maybe I'd run into her on the road, but that maybe turned into walking the entire distance. Against the wind and snow, I trudged home, one step at a time. My shoes sank deep into snow pits, and I had to yank them free every few steps. I didn't know how long I walked, only that by the end, my body was completely numb with cold. The thick military coat I wore had been blown so tight against me, it felt like a thin paper sheet. But when I finally dragged my exhausted body home, what I saw was a car parked neatly outside the yard. Willow got out of the car holding an umbrella, carefully opening the door for Makoto. That tilted umbrella covered mostly his side. "Thanks, Willow-jie," he said. "It's already enough. An imposition for me to arrive days early, and now I've troubled you to come pick me up so late." But the snow was too heavy. All transportation had stopped. I really had no choice. "There's no need to be so formal with me," Willow replied naturally, picking up his words. Then she began carrying bag after bag from the car upstairs. Items she had clearly prepared in advance. "Come on. These were all set aside for you long ago. I've reserved the north-facing room for you. It gets the most sunlight, you're not in great health, so you need to soak up the sun. The quilts are all new too. I chose the ones you like. If there's anything else you need, just tell me. I'll go get it for you." She piled all the things she thought were good right in front of Makoto as if proudly showing off. He laughed again and again. "You're treating me so well. My brother might get jealous, you know. I'm only staying for a few days. Don't let me ruin your relationship." He said this but looked directly into Willow's eyes as he added, "If I'd known you were this considerate, this capable, I would have listened to my mom back then and married you myself." From just a short distance away, I could clearly see Willow's eyes light up at those words, shimmering with unrestrained joy. And at that moment, I felt like none of it mattered anymore. Those 42 letters. They matched exactly the 42 months since Makoto had left after marrying someone else. Willow had never, not for a single second, stopped loving the person she truly wanted. It was only me blindly fooled by her carefully constructed illusion of love. I felt chilled to the bone. A slight cough broke the moment between the two of them in the distance. Willow saw how miserable I looked and rushed over hurriedly, taking off her coat to wrap me up in another layer. "George, why weren't you waiting where we agreed? Did you walk all the way back by yourself in this weather?" My lips were pale, and I lifted a trembling finger to point at the watch on Willow's wrist. "Do you even know what time it is now?" The snow was coming down in sheets. There wasn't a single hotel open in the whole district. "How long exactly did you expect me to wait? Until I froze to death?" My words were blunt and merciless, cutting off Willow's attempts at comforting me. The air grew awkward. Makoto furrowed his brows and stepped in casually, wrapping his arm around Willow's shoulder as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Bro, don't blame Willow-jie. It's my fault. I wanted to surprise you both, so I came early. I didn't know you needed the car today. I'm really sorry. If I'd known, I never would have asked Willow to come pick me up. She only did it for me. Please don't be mad at her." Only then did I lift my gaze and properly look at my brother. His hair was slicked with gel, freshly styled. His shirt had just been pressed. Even the faux fur lining on his coat's hood was still perfectly fluffy. It was obvious Willow hadn't let a single snowflake touch him. And me? My heavy military coat was soaked through. Wet hair clung in strands to my face. I looked absolutely pathetic, just like so many other times in the past. Back then, right after I was born, my parents were transferred to another province for work. Not wanting their jobs disrupted, or so they claimed under the pretense of sparing me hardship, they left me in my grandmother's care. During holidays, they would send packages to remind me I still existed to them. But later, they had Makoto. The packages started including photos, sometimes solo shots of Makoto looking handsome, sometimes pictures of the three of them together as a family. Their letters rarely spared a sentence for me, mostly filled with stories about how cute and lively your little brother was. They told me that if we were ever reunited one day, I must treat my little brother well. That kind of emotional and material abundance, I never even dared dream of it. But my brother was born into it. So the happy ones became even more open, even happier. And the unhappy ones grew duller, even more forgotten. I looked at Willow's shoulder tucked close under his arm. Without a word, I stepped past them and went straight into the east room. Willow frowned deeply and started to follow me, but Makoto caught her arm, stopping her. "Willow, my mom says I'm weak and shouldn't catch a chill. I swallowed quite a bit of wind on the way over. Can you make me some ginger tea to warm me up? Willow's eyes lingered a moment on the closed door of the east room. Then she pulled her gaze away. All right, go back to your room and wait. I'll bring it to you once it's ready. Their conversation outside came through to me loud and clear. I had thought I'd feel jealous or angry, that I'd blame Willow for abandoning me in a snowstorm, for not caring. But it was only now, after watching the two of them step out of the car one after the other, that I realized. My heart had already been frozen over by this brutal midwinter blizzard. It hit me. Maybe I didn't love Willow that much anymore. I drew a bucket of hot water and wiped myself down from head to toe. As I stepped out of the room, I happened to run into Willow just about to bring ginger tea to Makoto. She froze for a second when she saw me, then stammered a bit and pointed toward the kitchen. There's still some left in the kitchen. You can have some to warm up. I'll take this to Makoto first. I nodded numbly. I passed by the kitchen, and for some reason, poked my head in to take a look. In the small porcelain pot, there was barely a sip of liquid left. Just some scorched slices of old ginger clinging to the bottom. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. If she never planned to make a portion for me from the start, why bother saying something like that? Just to fake concern and make it worse? That night, maybe from being out in the snow too long, I slept incredibly heavy. The next morning, when I arrived at the factory, my head was pounding, and my body felt light and hollow. Lisa, walking in with me, noticed something was off. She handed me a candy and said, "You look awful. Are you sick? There's not much to do this afternoon anyway. Have the instructor take you to the hospital and get checked out. Flu's been nasty this year. Don't mess around with it." Lisa kept pushing me toward the door, but before we took more than a few steps, someone nearby piped up. "Instructor, I just saw her. Drove off with some young guy. No idea where they went, but it didn't look like she'd be back anytime soon." "Hey, that guy's your relative, right? Kinda looks like you." Instructor Lou is amazing. Not only is she good to her man, she takes care of his relatives too. "George, you really scored marrying someone like her. You're set for life." Their laughter rang out in all directions, but I couldn't even focus on what they were congratulating me for. My head was spinning. My eyelids felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I didn't care. All I felt was my body collapsing inward, and then everything went dark. I floated in a haze, vaguely hearing a voice scolding someone not far off. A young nurse, not knowing or caring who Willow was softly complaining. "How did you let the patient get this sick before bringing him in?" Willow didn't say a word. Her cold hands kept pressing gently against the sides of my face, trying to bring my fever down. It reminded me, she really did used to treat me well. But only now did I finally understand. She was only ever good to me when Makoto wasn't around. It was like, through caring for me, she was tending to someone else. As long as Makoto was there, I would always be the one left behind. That thought circled in my mind, and soon enough, consciousness slipped away again. When I woke up, the hospital room was empty. A lunchbox full of chicken soup sat on the bedside table, still steaming when I opened it. Someone had just been here. I got up, feeling around for the bathroom, but on the way back, I just so happened to pass by Makoto's hospital room. Through the gap in the door, I saw Willow gently feeding him spoonfuls of soup. "Drink a bit more. Your body's too weak, that's why you got low blood sugar again. Anyway, I've got nothing urgent these days, so I applied to work from home for a while, just to take care of you." Makoto's cheeks were flushed from the steam. He smiled, lowering his head, and in doing so, leaned closer to Willow. "Thanks, Willow. But what about my brother? I heard he's sick too. Maybe you should go look after him instead." "I'll be fine." Makoto sounded considerate, but the next moment, he choked on a mouthful of soup, gripping Willow's hand and coughing hard. She hurried to pat his back, trying to ease his breathing. "You think I can leave you like this?" she said softly. "George is strong, he's always been healthy. He'll be fine in a couple of days. I don't have to worry about him. Right now, nothing is more important than you." I had no mind to keep listening to the rest of what they were saying. Dragging my heavy steps, I returned to the hospital room. When I saw that bowl of chicken soup again, all I felt was irony. Not long after I got back, Willow followed shortly behind. Seeing me awake, she paused in surprise. "You're awake. Why didn't you ask someone to call me? How are you feeling? Still unwell?" I shook my head. "I'm fine. I just went out and saw you with Makoto." Willow fell silent, seemingly not expecting me to catch her in the act. Then she smiled, leaning in to repeat the same old excuse in hopes I'd forgive her. "Makoto had a hypoglycemic episode this morning and nearly fainted. I just happened to be the one who brought him to the hospital. And well, didn't Mom say before that Makoto's health is fragile and he needs extra care? So I thought, whatever you want." I cut her off before she could finish. Looking her in the eyes, I gently gave her the answer she was hoping for. "It's rare for Makoto to come all this way. It wouldn't be nice for him to leave still sick. I've got a cold and fever myself, so I'm not in the best shape to care for him. I'll leave it to you. I can manage on my own. You go take care of him." Willow froze for a second. She knew I'd always been obedient and understanding, but something about this felt off. Still, my tone and expression were calm. There was nothing for her to latch onto, so Willow didn't dwell on it. After a couple of vague replies, she went back to Makoto's room. Through the window, I watched her bustle around for another man. And just like that, the last bit of stubborn attachment stuck in my throat finally dissolved into nothing. I got a prescription from the doctor and was ready to head home. Passing by Makoto's room, the cheerful voices and laughter inside were piercing. Thankfully, I no longer felt a thing. Over the next few days, Willow kept going back and forth to the hospital, claiming she was taking care of Makoto. I was busy preparing for my upcoming teaching trip to the countryside, and before I knew it, we hadn't seen each other for a week. As the departure date approached, Lisa snuck over during lunch break and whispered to me, "Hey, have you told your supervisor about the teaching trip yet?" Without even looking up, I replied, "Not yet. She's been busy lately. I haven't had the chance." "Busy, my ass. I saw her this morning dragging that relative of yours around town shopping for clothes. Don't give me that excuse. I'm telling you, the sooner you talk to her, the better. If she doesn't approve, you'll still have time to work something out. And since there's going to be a farewell gathering before you leave, why not just bring it up then?" I kept my head down and said nothing. Would Willow disapprove? I highly doubt it. She's so wrapped up in the bliss of being with Makoto right now. She probably wishes I'd just stepped down as her official husband. There's no way she'd object. She'd probably be clapping in. Celebration. So just as Lisa suggested, I'll bring it up then and get it over with. From then on, we'll go our separate ways. I'll make a clean break. I swallowed the last flu pill, the bitterness quickly spreading beneath my tongue. With a furrowed brow, I forcefully flipped the framed photo of me and Willow face down on the table. Fine, I'll tell her later. Makoto was finally discharged from the hospital after 5 days, and I finally had a chance to tell Willow about the farewell party. From the upstairs window, I watched as Willow carefully helped my younger brother out of the car, supporting him step by step as they went upstairs. To say I felt nothing would be a lie. I should have seen it coming. Back when we were still in our hometown, Willow often came to visit my family. Everyone saw her as a pretty well-behaved young woman. She might not have been rich or powerful, but she definitely had the makings of a good wife and mother. My parents doted on Makoto. Whenever something good came along, they thought of him first. But he didn't want it. He kept saying he wanted to marry for love, that he'd only settle down with an educated, graceful woman, not some uncultured village girl for life. He even brought home a fiancée the very next year. When our family disagreed, he packed his things and prepared to elope with her. Left with no choice, our parents finally gave in and agreed to the engagement. That same year, Makoto got married. Willow poured her entire savings into preparing a sizable dowry. She sent a matchmaker to propose on her behalf. She wanted to marry me. I still remember the day I went to her house to make it official. Willow pulled me aside under the grape arbor and slipped me a jade pendant she'd kept close to her. "George," she said, "I know I don't look like much now, no money, no status, but would you wait for me? Just 2 years. I'll come back successful and proud and make you the most respected military wife in the district. The sunlight under the corridor had turned her cheeks bright red. I nodded and took off the longevity lock I'd worn for 20 years as a gift in return. I never expected a life full of glory and grandeur, but surprisingly, Willow really did make it happen. In just 2 years, she rose to fame and fortune. Later, when her job relocated, she brought me along with her. Since then, life had been everything I could ask for. Whatever I said went. If I asked for stars, she wouldn't hand me the moon instead. But why didn't I notice sooner? The way Willow looked at me, it was like she was seeing someone else. I let out a barely audible sigh. I didn't open the door until after Willow had finished settling Makoto into his room. Then I finally spoke. Our factory's having a farewell party the night after tomorrow. You should come with me. A farewell party? Who's it for? For. Before I could finish the sentence, I was abruptly cut off by the voice inside the room. Makoto's voice was weak and feeble. He said he was still recovering and didn't have the strength to change the bed linens, so he called for Willow to help him. Coming. Willow got up immediately. As she rushed off, she turned back to add, "The day after tomorrow, right? Okay, I'll find you at your factory then. I'm gonna help Makoto now." She left that line like a passing announcement and walked away. I looked down slowly, taking off the jade pendant that had accompanied me all these years and placed it alongside the 42 letters we had exchanged. That token, that feeling, it was time to return them to their rightful owner. Funny enough, the farewell party happened to be scheduled on February 14th. When people saw vendors on the street selling roses, everyone gathered around in curiosity. What kind of day is this? Why are they selling flowers? They sure are pretty. Today's a Western holiday, Valentine's Day. The young couples in the city love celebrating it. They have dinner, give each other roses, just a way of expressing love. It was the first time most of them had heard of such a bold holiday, and they couldn't help but laugh bashfully. A few who were curious asked about the price, then let out a chorus of dismay. What? Just a few roses and they're charging that much? They don't look any different from the ones blooming in my garden. Oh, come on. Don't be so clueless. Garden roses can't compare to these. Just look at the packaging. So modern and stylish. They represent love, you know. My hand paused mid-reach toward the petals, then quietly drew back. Right, how could garden roses ever compare to true roses? Roses were elegant, sophisticated. They meant something. They represented love. I abruptly averted my gaze and headed straight for the auditorium at the factory. Willow had said she wasn't busy today and could arrive early, but when I got there was no sign of her. Even the on-duty staff arrived in a hurry, but the seat meant for Willow remained conspicuously empty. The farewell party began as planned. I was chosen to go on stage as the representative speaker to give a motivational send-off speech before departure. When I stepped up, I smiled nervously. Out of instinct, my gaze flickered to that still empty seat in the audience. I didn't hold out hope. Ever since Makoto arrived here, I knew everything was coming to an end. Still, not being able to part on good terms and say a proper goodbye, it did feel like a pity. After all, Willow had been the only one in the past 20 years who'd ever treated me so kindly, even if it was for other reasons. I delivered a rousing, passionate speech on stage, but down below, Lisa was watching my expression closely. She glanced at me. Around then, Lisa nudged a younger worker beside her and asked, "Have you seen the supervisor? I heard there's not much going on at the base tonight. How come she's not here?" "Oh, her?" The young man flicked a quick glance toward me on stage before leaning in and lowering his voice. "Today's Valentine's Day, right? I heard she went out for dinner with that relative of hers." "That's odd," Lisa muttered. "Isn't Valentine's Day supposed to be spent with your partner? What's the point of taking a relative out?" Just then, another worker leaned over to join the conversation. "From what I've seen, Director Liu treats that relative way too well. I even caught them holding hands once. What kind of relative does that? Could it be?" "All right, that's enough." Lisa cut in before things spiraled further. Maybe she just thinks of him like a younger brother. You can't go jumping to conclusions like that. Now hush, George is still speaking. On stage, I didn't notice any of their quiet gossiping. I just focused on finishing the final task. When I concluded my speech, the entire hall erupted in applause. Facing the approving gazes of the leadership present, I solemnly signed my name at the bottom of the roster for the teaching volunteers. From that moment on, I had 3 days left before setting out for the frontier. It wasn't until I stepped out of the auditorium that I realized it had started to snow. I tried to bury my red, frozen nose into my scarf, but as I looked up, I saw 2 people running toward me, hand in hand. It was Willow and Makoto. George, I'm sorry, something came up, and I got delayed. Then I remembered you mentioned the farewell party and Willow wanted to explain more, but my eyes silenced her completely. My gaze was cold, colder than the snow falling at night. The light that used to shine in my eyes whenever I saw her was gone. Willow's heart sank. A bad feeling rose within her. But before she could say anything, Makoto jumped in to pick up where she left off. Bro, don't blame Willow. It was my fault. I insisted she stay and build a snowman with me. That's why she forgot the time. If you want to blame someone, blame me. But hey, it's just a farewell party, right? No special performances or anything. Probably wasn't that important. At his words, I turned my eyes toward him. My gaze landed on the large bouquet of roses in his arms, then moved to their still intertwined hands. Willow noticed where I was looking and quickly pulled her hand away. George, listen, I was just worried he might slip on the ice. No need to explain. I raised a hand with a smile and gently cut her off. You don't have to explain anything. I understand. You think of him as a brother, and he thinks of you as a sister. I get it. Head down. I walked straight past the 2 of them, ignoring Willow's calls behind me. The wind was bitterly cold, but not colder than the night Willow left me alone in a different district. I stepped through the snow, 1 foot at a time, and left them both behind as I returned to the residential compound. Sharp-eyed, I immediately noticed 2 freshly built snowmen downstairs. They were holding hands just like the 2 of them. One had an M written on its chest, and the other a W. I gave them a single glance, brushed the snow off my coat, and went upstairs. I had finally accepted it. Willow's heart belonged to someone else. And finally, I stopped placing my hopes on someone else. I made myself a pot of sweet soup to warm up. With only 3 days left before I left, I didn't want anyone tying me down anymore. Ironically, just as I'd made peace with everything, it was Willow's turn to fall into confusion. That night, for once, she wasn't hovering around Makoto. Instead, she came back to the room early. George, I want to explain what happened today. I cut her off. No need. Didn't we already talk about it outside? Willow faltered, then tried again. Those 2 snowmen. Oh, those. Makoto grew up with our parents, so he's a little childish and playful. As his older sister, it makes perfect sense you join him. Nothing strange about that. My tone stayed calm, even gracious, giving her every excuse and justification she might want. But for some reason, the unease in her heart only grew stronger. Later that night, with the lights off, Willow lay beside me in the dark, listening to the steady, shallow rhythm of my breathing. She couldn't shake the feeling that I was drifting away from her. On a strange impulse, she rolled over and slipped into my arms through the blanket, just like she used to long ago. She asked me, George, you're not going to leave me, are you? I was silent for a long moment, then chose not to answer her question. Instead, I changed the subject. I heard today is that Western holiday Valentine's Day. It's my first time experiencing it. I didn't have time to prepare a gift. I'll get you something in a couple of days. You'll love it. Her arms tightened around my waist. For that one sentence, Willow's anxious heart finally settled. She tilted her head up and placed a kiss on my chin. Okay, I'll wait. The next morning, Willow returned to the way she was when Makoto first arrived, taking care of his meals, clothes, daily needs, and everything else before heading to work. Since I had been given special permission to stay home and prepare for the upcoming teaching assignment, I was packing my things and waiting to depart with the group in 2 days. For the moment, the house was just the two of us, me and Makoto. With Willow gone, Makoto dropped the nice guy act completely. He swaggered into the living room and sat across from me, looking smug. "I really thought you had something going for you," he said, "managing to land a woman who actually seemed to love you. But turns out all it took was a few words from me and she was mine. George, you're such a loser. Couldn't win mom and dad's love growing up. Couldn't win your wife's love after marriage. No matter where you go, you're just dead weight." He raised his chin proudly and pulled out a sheet of paper, a divorce certificate. "Let me be straight with you. I'm already divorced. Willow. She's the next wife our parents picked out for me. At first, I was worried hearing how much in love you two were. But hey, looks like I didn't even need to try. You know what she told me the day it snowed? She said, she always wanted to marry me. If it hadn't been for my early marriage, and you looking so much like me, you wouldn't have even had this shot in this lifetime. So take my advice. Just divorce her already and hand her over to me. You've gotten to enjoy a good life all these years with that face that slightly resembles mine. Should be enough by now, don't you think?" Makoto's words were like poisoned daggers stabbing straight into my chest. All those memories of happy times with Willow flashed before my eyes, then collapsed into a single line from my mouth. "All right, I agree. I'll divorce her and let you have her. If I were you, I'd..." "Wait, what did you just say?" Makoto froze completely, caught off guard by how easily I'd agreed. Before he could recover, I stood up and took out a signed divorce application from the drawer in the nightstand. I said, "I agree. I'll be leaving in 2 days. You can give her this application then. Just tell her, it's my gift to her." Now it was Makoto's turn to be confused. He had assumed that even if I were willing to let go, I'd make it a painful process. For him, for Willow, or both. He never imagined I'd give her up without asking for anything in return. "Don't worry," I added. "I'm not bluffing. I know she likes you, and that she's been looking at me as if I were you for a long time now. Living with someone whose heart belongs to another, it disgusts her and me. Better to split early and spare each other. As for the house, the car, and everything else, you don't need to worry. When I married her, our parents didn't give me a single penny. I moved in with just 2 blankets and a couple of hot water bottles. Everything we have now came from her. So when I leave, I won't take a single thing with me. There's just one thing." I paused, then looked up at him. "The longevity lock I gave her. It's still with her. Last time I asked, she refused to give it back. Can you get it for me?" Makoto still looked suspicious, but after thinking it through, he figured helping me with this wouldn't hurt him. So he agreed. That same night, he even threw the item back at me without a second thought. "I thought it was something special," he said, "but when I asked to borrow it just to take a look, she took it off without hesitation. There, it's yours again. Don't forget what you promised." I clutched the longevity lock. It still held a faint warmth from being worn. I remembered how Willow reacted the last time I asked for it, how she had panicked. She'd said, "What I've given away I won't take back. I wear it like a family heirloom close to my heart. I wouldn't give it to anyone." But now, she handed it over to another man without even a second thought. I let out a bitter laugh and fastened the lock back around my neck. "Don't worry, I'm not going back on my word. I'll be gone soon." The day I left, the sky was gray and overcast. Afraid of being delayed by another snowstorm, our group set off earlier than planned. I sat in the bumpy long-distance bus as the scenery outside the window sped by. All the familiar outlines of the city and towns faded slowly from view as the sun rose higher in the sky. The bus was filled with young volunteers heading to the same teaching assignment. Everyone was chatting excitedly, laughter and conversation bubbling through the air. I, however, leaned quietly against the window, my fingers absent-mindedly tracing the edge of the glass, my eyes unfocused. "George, why so quiet?" The girl next to me tapped my shoulder with a smile and teased. "Don't tell me you're thinking about your supervisor, Lou. Still kind of surprising she let you go so far away. You must have done some serious convincing, huh?" Snapping out of my thoughts, I forced a slight smile. No. Supporting education in remote areas is a good thing. She was pretty supportive. That's good to hear. I've heard things can be rough up in the Northwest, but with all of us going together, helping each other out, we'll be just fine. She pulled a water bottle from her bag and handed it to me, trying to reassure me. I took it and softly said, "Thanks," then fell silent again. Twisting open the cap, I took a small sip. The cold water slid down my throat, but it did nothing to calm the turmoil inside me. My thoughts drifted, uncontrollably, back to that summer when Willow stood under the grape arbor, solemnly promising that she'd return and give me a good life. I could still clearly picture the resolve and gentleness in her eyes. But if I could go back to that moment, I would never accept that jade pendant again. At the same time, back in the place I was steadily leaving behind, silence had settled like a fog over familiar ground. Willow had unusually finished work early. On her way back, she happened to run into Makoto. She stood in the courtyard, watching as Makoto walked toward her with a smile, crunching snow underfoot. His tall frame looked even sharper in his black cashmere coat. "I got you dumplings, your favorite, pork filling. Running around in this cold. Aren't you afraid of catching a cold?" Willow smiled as she took the thermal lunch box from him, feeling the lingering warmth at her fingertips. Suddenly, she was reminded of the winter before Makoto's marriage when he'd gotten chilblains from playing in the snow. They'd tried all kinds of treatments, but the damage never quite healed. Later, when she had gained a few connections, the first thing she did was ask someone in Shanghai to bring back imported hand cream, just for him. But by then, Makoto was already married. With no official status anymore, all those gifts without a name had been passed on to George. She suddenly realized that George had been all along nothing more than a stand-in in a one-sided emotional relay, one he was completely unaware of. And with that realization, her heart unexpectedly throbbed in pain. "Willow, what are you thinking about? Let's go home, your dumplings will get cold." Makoto smiled and naturally took her hand. Willow froze for a moment but didn't pull away. They walked upstairs together, side by side, laughing as if nothing had changed. It wasn't until she stepped inside the house that Willow sensed something was off. The home felt unusually quiet today. It looked like someone had cleaned it thoroughly in advance. Many of the small, easily overlooked trinkets were gone. Willow called out a few times tentatively, only to be interrupted by Makoto. "Don't bother calling him. My brother probably had something come up and left. Let's not wait. Let's eat first." Still suspicious, Willow wandered between rooms for a while before hesitantly taking a seat. For some reason, a wave of anxiety stirred in her chest, a bad feeling she couldn't shake. But that uneasy feeling vanished the moment she saw Makoto sweetly preparing dumplings for her. This kind of warm domestic scene. She had dreamed of it countless times. She never thought it would really come true one day. Willow stood just outside the kitchen, watching Makoto's silhouette as he cooked. His face was blurred in the steam rising from the pot. Yet, as she looked on, she suddenly realized. She was hoping that the face turning toward her would be George's. She stood frozen in place, so lost in thought that she didn't hear Makoto calling her several times from the kitchen. Makoto came out holding a plate of dumplings, frowning as he joked, "Zoning out again? What were you thinking about, daydreaming in front of me like that?" I was just thinking about George." Clang! A loud thud echoed through the room as Makoto slammed the bowl clattered down onto the table, cutting Willow off mid-sentence. Makoto furrowed his brows, pretending to be upset. He knew Willow was most sensitive to this side of him. "George again," he began, his voice soft but smug. "Willow, can't you just be honest with yourself? You've been with me since I came back. You've given me everything I wanted. I know what's in your heart. I know you've liked me for a long time. You only married my brother because he looks a little like me. You've never truly gotten over me, have you? Willow." Makoto softened his tone, calling her name gently. Then he stood up and took 2 sheets of paper from the pocket of his coat, placing them in front of her. "I've got good news for you. I'm officially divorced. We're free to be together now. And this one's yours." He said it's his gift to you. He always knew your heart belonged to me, so he chose to step aside and give us his blessing. All you need to do is sign it, and we can be together in the open. Once spring comes, we'll go home, let my parents choose a lucky date, and make it official. What do you think?" Willow stared at Makoto in disbelief, slowly picking up the 2 sheets of paper. One was Makoto's finalized divorce certificate. The other was from George. When she read the contents, her heart sank like a stone. George's familiar handwriting stared back at her. "Due to irreconcilable differences, I voluntarily agree to dissolve the marriage. I honestly thought George would cling to you like a coward," Makoto said smugly. "Didn't expect him to be so sensible. Saved me the trouble. He gave me the divorce papers without even being asked. What did you say?" Willow suddenly cut him off, her voice trembling with disbelief. A terrifying realization dawned on her. She turned and ran into the house. She flung open the bedroom door. Everything seemed perfectly normal. George's clothes were still hanging neatly in the wardrobe. The items on the desk were all there. Even his favorite fountain pen still lay on the writing table. But when she opened the drawers, empty. He had taken all his important documents with him. No letter, no explanation, not even a photo. George had vanished without a trace, as if he'd never existed at all. Willow's heart twisted painfully. She collapsed onto the edge of the bed, clutching the divorce papers tightly in her hands. How could this be? Why would he want a divorce? She had given him a kind of love others could only dream of, a life of comfort and wealth beyond anything he could have imagined. Could it be? Willow sat in silence, replaying everything in her mind. A sudden thought flashed through her head. She sprang to her feet and ran to her own closet. She rummaged frantically until deep in the back, she found a metal box. But when she lifted it, it felt noticeably heavier than she remembered. She opened the lid, and inside lay a translucent jade pendant. Beneath it, pressed carefully, were the 42 letters she had once written to Makoto. So George had known all along. He'd realized long ago that he was just a substitute, loved only because Willow couldn't have Makoto. It turned out all his calm tolerance these past days had been for one purpose alone, to prepare for his departure. The snow outside was falling heavier by the minute, the swirling flakes blurring everything in sight. But Willow didn't care. She grabbed her coat and dashed out the door, leaving Makoto's calls far behind her. The biting wind cut into her like knives, but it still couldn't match the chill in her heart. As she passed a music store on the street, a sorrowful tune played from the speakers. Willow came to an abrupt stop. She suddenly remembered this was George's favorite song. He used to softly hum along every time it played. Now she finally understood the heartbreak buried in those lyrics. She rushed straight to the factory where George worked, threw open the office door, and was met with startled stares from the workers inside. "Excuse me, has George come to work today?" "George?" One of them shook his head. "The factory gave him a special 2-day leave. He's not coming in." "I don't know the details, though," he added. "You could try asking Lisa, they're really close. She might know." A flicker of hope reignited in Willow's sunken chest. After thanking him, she hurried off in search of Lisa. After several twists and turns, she finally arrived at her home. The door opened to reveal a bespectacled woman. She blinked in surprise. "Instructor Liu?" "Lisa, I need to ask. Has George been here?" Seeing the panic in Willow's eyes, Lisa had a feeling George hadn't told her about his departure. She sighed, stepped aside, and gestured for Willow to come in. "George is gone. Our factory had a program to send volunteers to teach in the Northwest. He signed up." "The Northwest? When did this happen? He never told me. Why would he suddenly decide to go?" "He's always loved teaching," Lisa explained. "Even at the factory, he used to organize literacy classes for the older folks who never went to school." Willow was hit with a wave of realization. She vaguely remembered George once mentioning he had dreams of being a teacher, and that he'd even gotten certified. But at the time, she'd been too absorbed in reminiscing about Makoto's dreams to really pay attention. That was when it all began. The 42 letters that followed were his farewell, carved in ink. "Instructor Lou," Lisa continued, "I know it's not really my place to comment on your marriage, but ever since that relative of yours came around, your favoritism has been way too obvious. You made George hike back alone through miles of snowy mountain roads. He caught a fever from the cold, and it didn't break for days. Even when he was hospitalized, you stayed in a different ward. Everyone at the factory was speculating about your relationship with that young man. Some nosy idiots even went up to George and asked him directly." Lisa let out a long sigh and ignored the growing pain on Willow's face. "The factory gave him 2 days off and he's been at home packing. Anyone paying attention would have noticed his things were disappearing. If only you'd asked just once, said something, you wouldn't be standing here now, desperate to find him." It was only now that Willow realized the gossip and whispers had already long wrapped themselves around George. That he had to endure not just the daily rumors but also come home and see her and Makoto together. That all of this was her doing. Willow clenched her brow tightly, her voice softening into something almost like a plea. She pressed Lisa again for George's whereabouts. But Lisa shook her head. "I really don't know. The Northwest is huge, Xinjiang, Gansu, Shaanxi, they're all possible. And even after arriving, they assign people to rural towns and tiny villages. No one knows exactly where he ended up except himself." With every word Lisa spoke, Willow's heart sank lower. She stared out at the snow falling endlessly in the freezing wind. And it hit her, she might have lost George forever. After leaving Lisa's house, Willow sat in her car, engine running for a long time. Yet she had no idea where to go. Lisa's words before she left kept echoing in her mind. She had said George leaving might not be a bad thing after all. It's a new era now, polygamy has long been dead. A 3-person marriage is just too crowded. You should take this chance to figure out who you truly want. Because even if you manage to find George, it's unlikely he'd ever come back with you. If you think you prefer the man from your family, then stop looking for George and just let him live his new life. George is his own person. He doesn't need marriage or love to survive. These words looped around Willow's ears endlessly. She tried to do what others did to numb their sorrow, light a cigarette. But she just held it in her hand, never bringing it to her lips. It wasn't until the ember burned down and scorched her skin that she flinched and came back to her senses. Was all of this destined? Was this fate's way of showing her the path? Being with Makoto had been her dream for so many years, climbing tooth and nail to reach her current position. More than half of it was for that one sentence Makoto once said, "I want to marry a woman who's cultured, rational, and can support me." Now, with all obstacles gone and fate offering her a second chance to choose, shouldn't this be the moment she took it? Willow finally understood everything. But strangely, she didn't feel happy. She drifted home like a ghost. As soon as she stepped through the door, she saw Makoto sitting there, red-eyed from crying, looking like a walnut with how swollen his eyes were, anxiously waiting for her. "Makoto, so you do remember to come back? I poured my heart out to you and you just ran off without a word. Where the hell did you go?" Willow hesitated. I went to find George." At the sound of that name, Makoto's heart skipped a beat, but he kept his expression composed as he asked, "So, did you find him?" "No, he's gone. Like you said, he stepped aside, gave us his blessing." Makoto had been worried that George might have orchestrated this whole thing as some kind of act, trying to win Willow back through drama. But hearing her say that, he finally let out a breath of relief. "So, what are you thinking now?" The sting from the cigarette still lingered faintly on Willow's fingers. She was quiet for a long moment, then walked over to Makoto and knelt down beside him. "Makoto, after all the twists and turns, we've ended up together. From now on, I'll treat you well. I'll take care of you." Makoto broke into a smile through his tears and pulled her tightly into his arms. "That's wonderful, Willow. I knew you wouldn't leave me." They held each other close. But Willow's face was hidden in shadow. She was with the man she had dreamed of for years. She should be happy. And yet, for some reason, her heart felt unbearably heavy. As if she had lost something that truly mattered. Ever since George left, Willow and Makoto had officially gotten together. As the political instructor, no one dared gossip openly in front of her. So those who felt George had been wrong took another route. They started saying things deliberately in front of Makoto, words laced with thorns. Hey, did you hear? Some guy's got no shame. Can't keep his hands off his own sister-in-law, right? He practically shoved his own brother out of the picture just to take his place. Disgusting. Makoto, spoiled and coddled since he was young, had never suffered this kind of humiliation. He snapped instantly. Who the hell are you calling shameless, you dried-up hag? Willow and I are in love. It's mutual. Who's seducing who here? The elderly woman wasn't easy to deal with either. She spat a sunflower seed husk on the ground and snorted. I'm talking to whoever it applies to. What a waste of a young man. You could have done anything, but no, you had to get involved with a married woman. You really have no shame. And don't think we're scared just because you're hiding behind Instructor Liu. Word is the higher-ups are sending people soon to investigate discipline and personal conduct. When that happens, don't think either of you can escape. Why you? Makoto's face turned red with anger. Flushed red with anger, Makoto stormed upstairs, muttering curses under his breath. When Willow saw the way he came back, she didn't need to ask what happened. They're so old already, why bother arguing with them? Makoto snapped. You have no idea the kind of vile things they were saying. Willow reached out her hand gently, but Makoto shoved it away. Just tell me, are you going to do something about it or not? He demanded. This kind of confrontation had become a weekly routine, and each time Makoto demanded an answer, Willow sighed and pulled his hand gently. Fine, I'll take care of it. Let's go to the city. You can buy whatever you want, all right? It was an old trick of hers, but it always worked. Sure enough, the next day, Makoto seemed to forget everything. He was all smiles, dragging her out of the house. He browsed for ornaments in a curio shop near Lulakang while Willow quietly accompanied him. But her eyes kept drifting toward the tea house across the street, the one George used to frequent. Willow, how about this one? Makoto's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. He was holding up a blue and white porcelain vase, smiling brightly. Willow froze for a moment. In that instant, she could almost see George standing there, smiling with the same gentle curve of his eyes. She shook her head, trying to dispel the illusion, and quickly said, It's nice. You say everything is nice. That's so perfunctory. Makoto pouted and grabbed her wrist. His fingertips were warm through the sleeve of her shirt, but to Willow, the warmth felt unfamiliar, almost icy. She remembered how George's hands were always slightly cool, like the tea he brewed, warm but never scalding. George again. She couldn't even count how many times she'd thought of him. Willow wasn't in the mood, but Makoto didn't notice. He kept loading up the car with purchases. Back home, he gleefully opened the wardrobe and started filling it with his new clothes. In truth, Makoto had already thrown out most of George's belongings the very first day he left. It was only because of Willow's insistence that a few items were kept, just in case George ever came back and needed something to wear. But now, not a single piece remained. I've thrown all these clothes away. They were so outdated, and there's even a military coat. Willow's gaze fell on the military green coat in the corner of the wardrobe, the one George had asked for last winter. He'd said that winter clothes needed to be durable and warm, and once winter passed, it didn't matter how they looked. She remembered how he used to stand in the snow, waiting for her to come home, his nose red from the cold but always smiling. But now he was gone, and the coat had been thrown into the trash. A sudden wave of grief clogged her chest, and she couldn't bear to watch any longer. She turned and headed straight into the kitchen to start preparing dinner. At the bottom of the freezer, there were still some dumplings George had made. Willow's hand froze. For a moment, she heard George's voice in her head. Your stomach's not great. If you get hungry at night, just cook some of these. Don't always eat out. When he was still around, Willow never thought her life would be so incomplete without him. But now that George was gone, she realized the space around her was filled with his presence in every corner, and she couldn't escape. It felt as though she were a fish out of water, suffocating. She shook her head, trying to push the image of George out of her mind. But when her fingers touched the worn groove on the knife handle, she froze. It was a mark left by George's hand after years of holding the knife. Makoto came out after tidying the wardrobe. When he saw Willow standing there in a daze, he couldn't help but ask with a laugh, "When did you learn how to cook?" "George taught me," she answered softly, her eyes suddenly feeling warm. The name she hadn't spoken in a while made the air hang heavy for a moment. After a long silence, Makoto walked over and wrapped his arms around her shoulders, resting his head on hers. "Willow, let's get married." The sudden proposal nearly made Willow cut herself with the knife. Her heart squeezed painfully, and she thought back to George's calm expression before he left. She remembered his tolerance and generosity in those final days and the silence when she asked him if he was going to leave. She realized now that those were his final goodbyes. But she didn't want to say goodbye. Willow took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain composed as she tossed the chopped vegetables into the pan. "Not yet. We have an assessment at work, and your parents still haven't set a date. Let's talk about it later." "Okay, I'll go talk to my parents tomorrow and get the date. After your assessment, we'll do it," Makoto said eagerly. That night, Willow lay in bed, her mind heavy with thoughts, listening to Makoto's steady breathing. Moonlight filtered through the cracks in the curtains, casting dappled shadows on the floor. "Willow," Makoto turned over, mumbling, "will you go with me somewhere tomorrow?" Willow absent-mindedly agreed, not realizing that Makoto still remembered this promise. What she didn't expect was that he would take her to a bridal studio. Willow stood outside the fitting room, a heavy feeling in her chest. Makoto had often hinted at his desire to marry her, even as recently as yesterday. But she always felt like she needed to wait for something, though she wasn't sure what. But this time, he took her directly to try on wedding dresses, and it seemed he wasn't willing to give her any more time to delay. "Do you think it looks good?" Makoto stepped out in a suit, straightening his collar, smiling at her. His smile was dazzling, almost identical to George's from back in the day. Willow managed a weak smile. "It looks good. Well then, when are you planning to get your marriage certificate with me?" "My parents said the wedding should be on an auspicious day, but the certificate can be signed any day." There it was again, the same question. Willow sighed lightly and chose to remain silent. Without a doubt, her response enraged Makoto. He angrily changed out of the suit and stormed out of the shop, despite Willow calling after him several times, trying to stop him. When Willow got home, she found Makoto sitting on the sofa, his face a deep shade of anger. She remained silent for a while, then decided to lay everything out. "Makoto," she took a deep breath. We can't get married." Upon hearing this, Makoto's expression immediately froze. "What do you mean?" Willow's gaze fell on the watch on his wrist. It was the one she had bought for him a few days ago, but now the metallic sheen felt painfully glaring. The reason was simple: George had a similar one. This constant feeling of everything reminding her of George was driving her crazy. It was in moments like this that she realized, after all these years, she had long fallen in love with George. She could now tell the difference between a rose and a rose bush. "I'm sorry, Makoto. I can't forget George." "What did you say?" "I'm sorry, Willow." She lowered her head. "I know this isn't fair to you, but I just can't go on like this. My world was already filled with George. Now that he's gone, it feels like the sky has collapsed. I can't think of anything but him. Can you understand this feeling, Makoto? You're still young. You have a long and bright future ahead of you. No matter what kind of woman you want, you'll find someone." "So..." Makoto didn't want to hear any more, interrupting her angrily. He suddenly stood up, the sound of his shoes scraping against the floor ringing sharply. "Willow, what do you mean? What have you been thinking of me all this time?" Makoto's voice was shrill and cutting as he grabbed the glass cup from the coffee table and smashed it to the floor. "Say something." The glass shattered, and the sharp pieces scattered across the floor, cutting Willow's hand. Blood dripped from her fingertips. Makoto, calm down. Don't call me. Makoto stepped back, grabbed a photo frame from the table, and threw it at the wall. The photo inside was one of them taken last week at Lulakang. Now the glass had shattered, cutting his hand and staining the photo with blood. Do you even know what I've endured for you? I've put up with everything. How others humiliated me, how they called me a homewrecker. All for you. And now you say this to me. Willow's face darkened. Makoto, Shut up. Makoto grabbed a cushion from the sofa and threw it at her. Why do you think you can treat me like this? Willow stood still, letting the cushion hit her. I'm sorry, Makoto. Sorry. Makoto sneered, his voice filled with contempt. Do you think sorry is enough? Willow looked at Makoto's face, which was almost identical to George's but now twisted with rage. She suddenly realized that she couldn't deceive herself any longer. She whispered, Makoto, the person I've always loved has always been George. Makoto froze, his movements halted. He stared at Willow as tears began to fall. Then, in a burst of fury, he grabbed the teacup on the table and threw it violently to the ground. Willow, you really are something. Willow stood in place, watching the teacup shatter and spill over her pants. I'm going to find him. The crying in the room stopped abruptly. Makoto lifted his head, his eyes full of despair. Find him? Do you even know where he is? No, but I'll find him. Upon hearing this, Makoto suddenly burst out laughing, his laughter hollow and bitter. Willow, you're truly laughable. Do you think he'll forgive you? Do you think he'll come back to you? You don't love me. So why didn't you push me away when I tried to get close to you? Now, after you've pushed George away, you pretend to be clear-headed and realize who you really love. Are you all this fake? Listening to Makoto's mocking words, Willow's throat tightened, and an unbearable ache filled her heart. It was true that she had once been torn between two men, thinking she could handle it. But now she was fully awake. The one she truly loved, the one she wanted to spend the rest of her life with, was George. She didn't want anyone else. It was her childhood obsession, mistaken for love. But now she'd realized the truth. I'll go find him and make up for all my mistakes. Upon hearing this, Makoto's laughter suddenly stopped. He grabbed the keys on the table and threw them violently at the wall. Get out. Go. Just go. Willow stood in the middle of the mess, staring at the wreckage around her, and then, without a word, left the house. She turned and walked away, her steps heavy as if filled with lead. The cold wind howled, sweeping up the snow from the ground and pelting it against her face. She desperately wanted to know where George was, but before she could take any action, reality struck her with a blow. A young soldier, still unable to keep his composure, had his emotions written all over his face. He hurriedly found Willow, pointing at the bulletin board, speaking in a disjointed manner. Political instructor, something's wrong. It wasn't until she stood in front of the office bulletin board that Willow understood what he meant. A large red notice about reorganization of work style and discipline had been partially lifted by the wind, and a formal document stood beside her. Instructor Liu, Secretary Mao requests your presence in the Discipline Inspection Office. All right, I understand. The heater in the Discipline Inspection Office was cranked up high, the air stiflingly hot. Secretary Mao's enamel mug was filled with frothy tea, and the stains on the rim had formed brown rings. Someone reported that you and Comrade Makoto are involved in an improper relationship. Secretary Mao slid a stack of documents toward her. The top one was a black and white photo, a picture of her with Makoto. Willow stared at her side profile in the photo, the words that escaped her lips sounding pale and powerless. This is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Secretary Mao pulled out an anonymous letter, his smile more of a sneer. The masses say that before Comrade George went to teach in the Northwest, Makoto was already living in your house. The two of you frequently dined together, went shopping together, just like an ordinary married couple. Some even say that Comrade George's hasty decision to go to the Northwest to teach was partly because of this. Willow's lips moved, but no words came. She knew she should offer an explanation, But the truth was the truth. She had no face to defend herself. The organization has decided to suspend your duties. Secretary Mao tapped the red-stamped, double regulation document on the table. Comrade Makoto will also be suspended for investigation. The scent of ink wafted down the hallway as the newly printed disciplinary report was being pinned to the bulletin board. As Willow passed by, she saw Makoto rush into the secretary's office, the hem of his cashmere coat scattering flyers across the floor. "Why are you accusing me of collusion? Willow and I truly love each other. It was that bastard George who took her from me first." Willow quickly walked through the hallway, trying to avoid hearing the rest, but she was still caught by the sound trailing behind her. "Willow, are you satisfied now? I'll have a stain on my record forever. Do you think everything will be fine just because you've thrown me aside? Do you think he'll want you now? With your current status, you can't even find out where he is." Each word felt like a steel knife stabbing her heart. Willow remained silent, not even turning around as she stepped out the door. The news of Willow's suspension spread quickly to the neighbors. She sacrificed the last of her dignity and, after several twists and turns, managed to find the head of the Northwest Project. From him, she got George's current address. The bus station in the dusk carried the smell of coal smoke. Willow gripped her ticket tightly and squeezed onto the last bus of the night. Her faded military coat still held the jade pendant George had returned to her. As the bus started, she saw Makoto running after it, his red scarf billowing in the wind and snow like blood. The figure in the rearview mirror grew smaller and smaller, eventually merging with the image of the person she had been longing for, but it wasn't the same person. "Driver, can you go a little faster?" The woman in the front seat was holding a feverish child. "The baby can't make it to the county hospital." Willow suddenly remembered how George had taken the barefoot doctor exam before he left. He always said the Northwest lacked medical supplies and he would fill charity donation packages with medicines. Those medicines might be saving some child's life now, just like how he had saved her shattered dignity countless times. The long-distance bus jolted through the wind and snow for an unknown amount of time. Willow curled up in the last row, wrapped in her military coat, drifting off to sleep. "Driver, the child is convulsing again." The woman in the front seat suddenly screamed. The child in her arms had a blue-purple face with white foam at the corners of its mouth. Willow, in a panic, suddenly felt the barefoot Dr. Manual in the inner pocket of her coat. The cover was still stained with George's blue ink. Last year, while he stayed up late copying, he had said, "Convulsions. You need to press the pressure point on the philtrum and find a chopstick to stop the child from biting their tongue." Her fingers trembled more than a dying moth, but she steadied herself and pressed the child's acupoint. "We're almost there." The commune. The health center was just ahead. "Hurry! Get them there!" The driver slammed the steering wheel, and the wheels cut a terrifying arc on the ice. The iron gate of the health center was locked with a rusty padlock, and through the glass window, the overturned medicine cabinets could be vaguely seen. Willow kicked the door open while holding the child, her chest thundering like a drum. "Is anyone here?" An old man wearing a sheepskin coat appeared from behind the mud wall, the flashlight beam wavering over a Red Cross medical box. "I'm here." Quickly put the child on the bed. In a flurry of movements, they managed to get the child settled before the situation grew even more critical. The old man efficiently pried open the window latch and pulled out an injection from the bottom of the medicine cabinet, saying, "All right, one shot and you'll see results." Then he looked up at Willow. "This manual you have. It looks familiar. You must know George, don't you?" Willow froze, standing still. "Sir, you?" "This manual was also given to me by him. When he and a group of people passed through this place, he gave me a few boxes of medicine. He told me his name was George and said I should come to F County in the spring and visit him." The old man chuckled twice, the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes deepening. "At my age, I can't travel anymore. F County." Willow silently pulled out the address the project director had given her. It matched perfectly. She suddenly felt a surge of energy, and the heaviness of the bus ride earlier seemed to lift. She hurriedly said goodbye to the old man. "You're still young. When spring comes, I'll bring him back to visit you." The old man watched her rush off, shaking his head and laughing. Young people, so impatient and reckless. The bus traveled for another 10 hours before finally reaching its destination. The mountain road, in the dusk, looked like a lifeless white snake. Willow, carrying her bag, stumbled along each step, heavy and uneven. Her military coat had frozen into a crust, each step making a loud crunching sound. She suddenly thought, when George first arrived, the weather had been even worse than this. As he walked this very road after his night classes, was he listening to the same sounds? Was he afraid of the dark? Had he ever fallen? As dawn began to break, she spotted a faded flag fluttering by the cliff. The mud brick classroom had fertilizer sacks patched over the windows, and the distorted pinion letters glowed faintly in the morning light. George's handwriting was everywhere. "Auntie, who are you looking for?" Willow startled, and when she looked down, she saw a little girl with a backpack. Her face flushed from the high-altitude red. "Oh, I'm looking for Teacher George. Is he here?" "He took the senior class to the village to take exams. He won't be back until evening." The certainty in the girl's voice made Willow's heart skip a beat. She quickly said she'd wait. And wait she did, so long that she lost track of time. As dusk settled in, Willow crouched by the stove, starting a fire. Burnt potatoes were buried in the ashes, the kind of meal George used to have for dinner. The crackling of the fire seemed unusually loud in the quiet evening, when suddenly the sound of children's laughter came from outside. Willow jumped up, startled. The wind carried in the snowflakes as she entered, bowing her head to brush off the snow from the children's shoulders. "Teacher Wong." The kids rushed toward her, and a little girl with her hair in horns pointed toward the shadows. "That lady's been waiting for you for a long time." Willow stepped out from behind the pile of firewood, her military coat now with scorch marks from the potatoes. I turned toward her, and the exam papers in my arms fell with a soft thud to the muddy ground. The children suddenly grew quiet, 30 pairs of eyes darting between the two of us. "George." I hadn't received any notice, so when I saw Willow here, my mind went blank. "How did you get here?" Willow's voice caught in her throat. She glanced at the children and then at me, whispering, "Is it possible to talk somewhere else?" I didn't say anything but silently agreed, leading her to my humble office. The only light in the office came from an oil lamp, its flame flickering in the glass shade. Willow watched me, lips pressed tightly together, then finally gathered the courage to speak. "Let's talk." "Talk about what?" "About these past days. I've missed you." "Willow, you didn't travel across mountains just to reminisce, did you? If you have something to say, hurry up. I'm not that free." The air grew thick with tension. Then Willow suddenly said, "I've been suspended." My hand froze as I was pouring water. "So why come to me?" "Makoto thinks you're a woman who can't help him. So you came to find me, hoping I'll wait for you another 2 years." "No." Willow's voice suddenly rose. Teacher Wong." The sound of someone knocking on the window interrupted Willow's words. "Susie has a fever and is talking nonsense." I threw down the cup and ran, with Willow following close behind into the next mud brick room. The little girl was curled up on the bed, her face burning bright red, clutching a half-frozen bread piece in her arms. I pulled the damp pillowcase off. "Go to the warehouse and get the white liquor, the 4-bottle at the bottom of the cabinet." Willow nodded, fumbling in the dark until she found half a bottle of Red Star Ergotu. I was wiping Susie's body down, noticing the purple sores from frostbite on her back. They stung her eyes. "Hold her still." I rubbed my hands with the white liquor. "This might hurt a bit." Willow thought the words were meant to comfort Susie, but when Susie, in a stupor, cried out, "Don't go, Mama," and scratched her hand until it bled, Willow understood how deep the pain truly was. At 3 in the morning, Susie's fever finally broke. I collapsed on the threshold of the kitchen, and Willow timely handed me an enamel mug. "Drink some water." "No need. Just leave it." Willow reluctantly withdrew her hand, then changed the topic. What are you doing tomorrow? I didn't even lift my head. I'll tutor the senior class. I'll help you. Help me? What can you do? Willow thought for a moment. Military boxing, grading, homework, carrying grain. I suddenly laughed, my laughter colder than the night wind. Lou, instructor, can you tell the difference between millet and rice? She froze. Then, after a long pause, with a voice almost pleading, she choked out, George, I'll do anything. Just let me atone, please. Atone for what? I suddenly stood up. You should go to the city and find Makoto. Didn't he want to be a groom? Willow's eyes watered, and she fumbled through her pockets, pulling out the jade pendant George had returned to her. Take this. After you left, I never gave it to him. I thought being with him was fulfilling my wish, but after you left, I realized how laughable that idea was. I love you. My wish, without me realizing it, became to be with you for the rest of my life. George, please forgive me, okay? The wild wind howled, making the window frame rattle. I stared at the jade pendant, its surface smooth and warm, and my gaze was cold. I don't know much about jade varieties. To me, they all look like pretty glass. But because I liked you, I've treasured this piece for many years. But now I no longer like it. So to me, it's just ordinary glass again. As dawn broke, the sound of roosters crowing echoed in the distance. I didn't wait for Willow's reply. I turned and walked toward the classroom, saying, when it gets light, you can go down the mountain. There's a bus 20 miles away. I'm not leaving. Well, suit yourself. I opened the office door and said, just don't linger around me, talking about those annoying and disgusting things. Willow still didn't leave. She stayed in the office until the first light of day, then went to fetch water from the well. The creaking of the iron wheel startled the sparrows under the eaves. Before she could draw the bucket up, a loud voice came from behind. Teacher Wang's water jar was filled by me yesterday. Willow turned and saw a tall, beautiful woman. The woman was holding a bamboo basket, and the smell of roasted potatoes wafted out. I'm Alicia, a substitute teacher at the village school. Willow noticed a knife with a wooden handle strapped to her waist, and the scabbard was engraved with the twisted word, Wang. The well rope suddenly slipped, and the bucket crashed back into the bottom with a loud thud. Willow wasn't someone to pry into others' privacy, but when it came to George, she couldn't help herself. Her eyes darted to the handle of the knife a few times, then she finally asked, Are you close to George? Alicia looked up at her, then lowered her head. He's a good man. Teaches the elderly in the village to read, teaches these left-behind children, gives them medicine and treats them. No one here has a bad relationship with him. Such a shame, though, Alicia said without looking at her, quickly cleaning up the scattered buckets and bowls, then adding casually, he has bad judgment. The woman he married isn't much of a person. Her tone was so matter-of-fact, as if she had no idea the woman standing before her was George's ex-wife. Willow's breath caught in her throat, but before she could vent, Alicia had already rushed into the classroom. Willow looked through the broken window and saw Alicia teaching the children to sing mountain songs while George sat, head bowed, grading homework. The reflection of his eyelashes hung on the yellowed paper. When Alicia sang, "The mountain flowers are bright red," her gaze kept drifting toward him. At this point, even a fool could see what Alicia was after. Willow, furious, raised her leg to kick the wooden bucket. But when she thought of George's cold eyes, she pulled her foot back and instead packed a snowball to throw at her own head. How had she managed to lose George, such a good man, and their perfect marriage? In the days that followed, I simply followed Willow's lead, looking at her like she was a stranger, completely ignoring her. Willow watched the two of them laughing and chatting after class, feeling out of place, as though she didn't belong here. But she couldn't bring herself to leave George. She still wanted to stay close to him, and she stayed that way until nearly spring. The weather between winter and spring was dry, and sandstorms were frequent. One night, Willow was suddenly awoken by the sound of tiles cracking. When she rushed into the classroom, Alicia had already covered the windows with oilcloth, holding a crying Susie in her arms. When Alicia saw her, she hurriedly handed the child to Willow. Teacher Wong is still in the warehouse rescuing textbooks. I'll go move the sandbags. Willow nodded in agreement, settled Susie, and rushed to the warehouse. She found me holding up a wobbly bookshelf with my body. She ran over to help, dust clouding her eyes as she heard me shout, "Third stack on the left. Those are the new textbooks. The kids need them for the new term. Wait for me. I'll go move them." As we struggled to carry the boxes of books out, Alicia came back against the wind, carrying sandbags. Her clothes were torn, and the ugly scars on her shoulder were visible. Alicia shoved me toward Willow. "You two take care of the kids. I'll go block the back wall." Willow instinctively held me, but I struggled to pull away. "No, the sandstorm is too strong. Alicia got lung disease from a previous fire rescue. She's experienced. She knows better how to avoid the sandstorm than you," Willow yelled, so loudly her voice cracked, but the person next to her suddenly froze. Long hours of hard labor had caused me to faint at that very moment. When I woke up, everything was calm again. The muddy ground, after the heavy rain, still shimmered with water. Willow sat at the side of the bed, tightly gripping my wrist, and said, "Come back to the mansion with me. You can't get enough to eat or stay warm here. What are you even after? You've already dragged your body down to this point." I frowned, and the force from our struggle left a faint red mark on my wrist. I shouted, "Let go! George, just look at this place. Can anyone live here? Look at your hand." Willow angrily lifted my hand up in front of my face. The grooves in my fingertips were filled with chalk dust that couldn't be washed off, and my nails were pale and anemic, which was pitiful to see. Alicia, seeing this, put down the bowl of porridge and walked over. "Ms. Liu, forcing something that doesn't fit won't make it sweet. It's none of your business." I suddenly laughed out loud, the bones in my wrist pressing painfully into Willow's palm. "Miss Liu, you've taught such a good lesson, but why didn't you use that trick to keep Makoto away from you when you needed it?" Willow froze. Then, after a long pause, with a voice almost pleading, she choked out, "George, I'll do anything. Just let me atone, please." "Atone for what?" I suddenly stood up. "You should go to the city and find Makoto. Didn't he want to be a groom?" Willow's eyes watered, and she fumbled through her pockets, pulling out the jade pendant George had returned to her. "Take this. After you left, I never gave it to him. I thought being with him was fulfilling my wish, but after you left, I realized how laughable that idea was. I love you. My wish, without me realizing it, became to be with you for the rest of my life. George, please forgive me, okay?" The wild wind howled, making the window frame rattle. I stared at the jade pendant, its surface smooth and warm, and my gaze was cold. I don't know much about jade varieties. To me, they all look like pretty glass. But because I liked you, I've treasured this piece for many years. But now I no longer like it. So to me, it's just ordinary glass again. As dawn broke, the sound of roosters crowing echoed in the distance. I didn't wait for Willow's reply. I turned and walked toward the classroom, saying, "When it gets light, you can go down the mountain. There's a bus 20 miles away." "I'm not leaving." "Well, suit yourself." I opened the office door and said, "Just don't linger around me, talking about those annoying and disgusting things." Willow still didn't leave. She stayed in the office until the first light of day, then went to fetch water from the well. The creaking of the iron will startled the sparrows under the eaves. Before she could draw the bucket up, a loud voice came from behind. "Teacher Wong's water jar was filled by me yesterday." Willow turned and saw a tall, beautiful woman. The woman was holding a bamboo basket, and the smell of roasted potatoes wafted out. "I'm Alicia, a substitute teacher at the village school." Willow noticed a knife with a wooden handle strapped to her waist, and the scabbard was engraved with the twisted word, Wong. The well rope suddenly slipped, and the bucket crashed back into the bottom with a loud thud. Willow wasn't someone to pry into others' privacy, but when it came to George, she couldn't help herself. Her eyes darted to the handle of the knife a few times. Then she finally asked, "Are you close to George?" Alicia looked up at her, then lowered her head. "He's a good man. Teaches the elderly in the village to read, teaches these left-behind children, gives them medicine and treats them. No one here has a bad relationship with him. Such a shame, though," Alicia said without looking at her, quickly cleaning up the scattered buckets and bowls, then adding casually, "He has bad judgment. The woman he married isn't much of a person." Her tone was so matter-of-fact, as if she had no idea the woman standing before her was George's ex-wife. Willow's breath caught in her throat, but before she could vent, Alicia had already rushed into the classroom. Willow looked through the broken window and saw Alicia teaching the children to sing mountain songs while George sat, head bowed, grading homework. The reflection of his eyelashes hung on the yellowed paper. When Alicia sang, "The mountain flowers are bright red," her gaze kept drifting toward him. At this point, even a fool could see what Alicia was after. Willow, furious, raised her leg to kick the wooden bucket. But when she thought of George's cold eyes, she pulled her foot back and instead packed a snowball to throw at her own head. How had she managed to lose George? Such a good man, and their perfect marriage. In the days that followed, I simply followed Willow's lead, looking at her like she was a stranger, completely ignoring her. Willow watched the two of them laughing and chatting after class, feeling out of place, as though she didn't belong here. But she couldn't bring herself to leave George. She still wanted to stay close to him, and she stayed that way until nearly spring. The weather between winter and spring was dry, and sandstorms were frequent. One night, Willow was suddenly awoken by the sound of tiles cracking. When she rushed into the classroom, Alicia had already covered the windows with oilcloth, holding a crying Susie in her arms. When Alicia saw her, she hurriedly handed the child to Willow. "Teacher Wong is still in the warehouse rescuing textbooks. I'll go move the sandbags." Willow nodded in agreement, settled Susie, and rushed to the warehouse. She found me holding up a wobbly bookshelf with my body. She ran over to help, dust clouding her eyes as she heard me shout, "Third stack on the left. Those are the new textbooks. The kids need them for the new term. Wait for me. I'll go move them." As we struggled to carry the boxes of books out, Alicia came back against the wind, carrying sandbags. Her clothes were torn, and the ugly scars on her shoulder were visible. Alicia shoved me toward Willow. "Someone else, or when the real person shows up, I'm always the one forgotten in the back of your mind." My tone was calm, slowly revealing the scars over my heart, making Willow's heart tighten. "Willow, have you ever seen a lamb frozen to death?" I suddenly asked. Willow didn't understand, but I continued speaking to myself. "Their eyelashes are covered in ice crystals, and their bellies are empty. Just like how I waited for you to come find me so many times." My heart had already frozen through. "Go. Don't come find me again." After saying this, I pulled the blanket over my head, giving the appearance of sending someone off. No matter how reluctant they were, they had to respect my need for rest. After everyone left, I finally let out a breath and drifted into a drowsy sleep. In the dream, it was like I was once again on the bus heading towards the northwest. The people in the bus were still excitedly talking about their experience with teaching in the rural areas. Some talked about the sandstorms in the northwest, some talked about the children there, and others discussed future plans. I listened, but it felt like their voices were separated by a thick layer of glass, distant and fuzzy. Later, the bus kept driving, passing vast desolate fields, and in the distance, the mountain ridges appeared faintly in the dusk. I leaned against the window, closed my eyes, and heard the engine's deep hum and the noisy chatter in the bus. "George, look!" The girl beside me suddenly pointed out the window and exclaimed, "The mountains over there are so beautiful." I opened my eyes and followed the direction she pointed to. In the distance, the mountain ridges were bathed in the golden hue of the setting sun, as if they had been set on fire. I stared blankly at it, and suddenly a phrase popped into my mind. "Where the plains end, spring mountains begin." Now, I had finally crossed my own desolate land and welcomed the golden sun over the mountains. I had slept for a long time, and when I opened my eyes again, I was jolted awake by a burst of yelling. The harsh voice cut through the glass, and Makoto, in his expensive patent leather shoes, was searching around for me. "George, do you have no shame hiding in a mountain ravine and seducing another man's wife? Come out here." The children, startled by this sudden commotion, huddled together in fear. Willow peeked out at the sound, and upon seeing who it was, her face changed drastically. "Why are you here?" She hurried over, grabbing Makoto's wrist and trying to pull him outside. "Go talk somewhere else. We're in class here." "Class? Teaching how to be a mistress and destroy someone's marriage?" Makoto didn't care about that. He shrugged off Willow's hand and stormed into the classroom. He grabbed the books on the podium and threw them around, the printed exam papers flying like snowflakes. "Makoto, what are you doing?" Willow rushed over to stop him, but he grabbed her by the neck, drawing blood. Willow froze, unable to comprehend that the man before her, throwing a tantrum and acting shamelessly, was the same Makoto she once knew. "What am I doing? What's wrong with me? George stole my wife, and I'm not allowed to demand an explanation? You always liked me. So what did he give you to make you go back to him?" Makoto screamed hysterically, and the words that came out became more and more incoherent. "I get it now, all this talk of being fired was a lie. You just want to get rid of me and be with that man, don't you?" A barrage of words bombarded Willow, and before she could respond, the door suddenly opened. I leaned against the doorframe as I entered, my face as pale as paper. I ushered the children outside to play and wiped the sweat from my forehead, saying, "What's all this noise? This is a school. If you're going to lose your mind, do it somewhere else." "George, what are you pretending to be all high and mighty for?" Finally seeing the person he despised, Makoto stormed forward, only to be blocked by Alicia, who stepped in front of him. She ordered, "I don't care who you are, but you're not welcome here. Please leave." "Oh, looks like you've got a lot of lovers, pretty impressive." Makoto sneered viciously, pointing his finger at me. "It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been fired. Willow wouldn't have left me. Now everyone knows Willow refused to marry me for you, and I've become a laughing stock. Why should I endure all this humiliation while you two can act all lovey-dovey here? Why?" Makoto didn't realize how incoherent he had become. The more he spoke, the angrier he got, and in the end, he grabbed the modern dictionary on the podium and hurled it at me. He ranted, not noticing that a gleam of cold light flashed among the pages he threw. It was the craft knife used to cut the exam papers. "George!" Willow instinctively lunged to block me. As the blade grazed her hand, she saw the look of shock in his eyes, and in that moment, she felt that everything was worth it. He finally cared enough to feel something other than indifference toward her. Drip, drip, blood fell onto the pinion chart, staining the black print with dark red. Alicia swiftly grabbed Makoto's arms and pinned his legs down with her boots. "Move again and I'll call the police." "Call them?" Makoto laughed madly. "Let the authorities see how a teacher seduces a married woman." A loud slap rang through the classroom. I silenced him with one swift strike and then grabbed the spare gauze and iodine from under the desk, skillfully tending to Willow's wound. "Watch your mouth. It was you who tried to steal another man's wife, not me. And from what I know, you two aren't even married, right? So which so-called husband are you talking about? Lastly, I'll say it again. I didn't steal her. There's nothing worth stealing from someone who's already moved on. You're the only one who treated her like a treasure. If you can, please just take her away." The words hung in the air, and both Willow and Makoto had different reactions. Willow thought that at least after blocking the blow for George, it would stir something in his heart. But no, when he looked at her, it was still as if he were staring at a lifeless plant. Makoto was even more enraged, seeing my calmness as a form of bragging. His face contorted as he opened his mouth to curse again. Before he could gather himself, Willow, exhausted and resigned, stopped him. Enough already. You and I both know exactly what's been going on between us. So why come here and dump all this garbage on him? She sighed heavily, gripping the blood-stained gauze, and collapsed weakly to the side. You never wanted to be with me, did you? Did you hear your parents talk about my family's ancestral house? The deed is yours. Take it and go. Stop causing trouble for him. Okay? After a brief silence, Makoto stopped struggling and nodded. Fine. I've got the documents ready. When should we go to settle this? A ridiculous scene unfolded unexpectedly and ended just as inexplicably. The next morning, I woke up and saw an empty bed, not knowing how to react. I knew she had gone to the county with Makoto, saying she was going to handle the transfer of the old house, but she never came back after that. I didn't pay much attention and just went on with my life as usual. Day by day, I taught and treated the elderly in the village. Whenever I had free time, I copied a few more copies of the Barefoot Doctor's Manual and distributed them for free to every household. Until one day in early spring, when the snow melted, the postman, who rarely came, surprised everyone by calling out the villagers' names. George, you have a letter. I wiped my hands dry suspiciously, took the neatly wrapped letter, and the moment I laid eyes on it, I immediately recognized the handwriting. George, I'm writing this letter to you from Old Lee's place. Do you remember him? He recognized us through the Barefoot Doctor's Manual you gave me. It's over 600 kilometers from here to where you're teaching, and every time a car passes, I stare at the tire tracks, thinking that maybe one of them leads to you. I know I'm rambling, but what I really want to say is I miss you. After I left with Makoto, I transferred the house to him and we went our separate ways. I didn't stay with him, but I didn't know how to face you, so I ran away. When I had nowhere else to go, I thought of you, wanting to do something meaningful like you. So I found Old Lee. I promised her I would bring you back here in the spring. Though now I'm here alone. I continued reading her letter, and it was clear that Willow had become more mature and steady. She spoke of meeting all kinds of patients as well as seeing various medical mysteries. Once, she saved a boy from a high fever and seizures, and his family cried in gratitude, giving her 2 packets of milk, but she refused to take them. The letter went on for several pages, with most of it filled with her longing for me and her experiences. At the end, the tone shifted abruptly. I left something under the bed I once slept in, something I gave to you. Take it and use it to build the house and your dreams there. The children who meet you are lucky, and I am too. I furrowed my brow as I reached under the bed and felt an iron box. When I opened it, sunlight gleamed off the stack of bills inside. Each bundle of cash was neatly arranged, with ration coupons all packed in perfect order. I read to the last page of the letter, where Willow had deliberately marked a section with red ink. Your parents only know that my family's old house is valuable, but what's really valuable is not the house, but the things inside it. Before I came here, I sold those things and the money is all here. Don't return it to me and don't feel embarrassed to take it. It's for the construction of the Northwest. Remember to build the house solidly, and next time don't go risking your life in the rain to save those books. And one more thing, buy yourself a warm coat with this money. I saw you with your cuffs all worn out and coughing while grading papers at night. Your health is the real foundation for everything. George, I'm not asking for your forgiveness, just like the Yellow River will never flow backwards. But I want to live like you, tutoring the nearby kids, helping the elderly carry water. Each brick I move will be like an apology for the grievances I caused. When I've saved enough money, I want to dig a sweet water well at the village entrance and call it George's Well. I owe you this life, and in the next life, I'll repay you. But if there is a next life, please don't meet a woman like me again. Alright, I need to go. The patients are waiting, and Old Lee is calling me. Take care of yourself. Farewell. Don't miss me. My eyes followed the words down to the last letter. Then I turned the page. The back was covered in the words I'm sorry, the last one trailing off into a long ink stain, like dried tears. I sighed softly. I believe Willow may have truly understood her mistakes by now, that she genuinely wanted to change and finally realized who she loved. But it was all too late. If you plant the seeds of early spring at the end of summer, they will never bloom. On the day of the spring equinox, 50 sets of new textbooks filled the warehouse. I squatted in front of the newly built dormitory, counting the remittance slips. The money had been used to buy new desks and chairs and to repair the classroom's roof. I kept the rest aside for future needs. Alicia was not far off, steadily walking toward me after finishing the last step of the stairs. She said, "Wang, the county's transfer order came through." I looked up at her and asked, "When are you leaving?" "The bus at noon the day after tomorrow. I'll be going to the police academy to be an instructor." Alicia's voice mixed with the sound of the wind. It was the bullet shell wind chime she had made herself, with each shell engraved with a student's name. I had once joked that she must be the most artistic officer in the police force. She handed me a tin box. Inside were 7 polished bullet shells. "I collected these during my time in the military. I had planned to—" She suddenly stopped, her fingers tracing the bullet holes on the lid. I opened the box, and the top shell was engraved with 1973, 9/15" my birthday. The second one had a simple sketch of a reservoir with the word George carved in tiny letters at the bottom. I studied each design carefully, then accepted the farewell gift with a smile. "I told you, you're definitely the most artistic officer in the police." "George?" Alicia suddenly grabbed my wrist but then quickly let go, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "Come with me. I'll request the county to transfer other teachers here. The life in the county will be better than here. I'm not saying we'll eat fancy, but at least we'll have enough food and warm clothes." I had heard this same thing for the second time now. I smiled, bending down to move a larger stone off the playground. I used to work in a factory and the pay was good. My colleagues and leaders treated me well. There was a fridge in the house, a double bed, and my own big wardrobe, but I still came here. I wiped the sweat from my brow and looked over at the children before continuing. "Don't misunderstand me. I'm not showing off how superior my life was. I just want to say, I didn't come to the Northwest for a better life. I want them, these kids, to walk out on their own efforts and live better lives." My words left Alicia feeling a little embarrassed. She fell silent, then, with great seriousness, gave me a military salute. "Sorry, Wang. I was too forward." I couldn't help but laugh. "Enough with the seriousness. Come on, let's see if there's any food left. Tomorrow I'll cook, and we'll send you off with the kids." "All right, then I humbly accept." The next morning, I rushed into the kitchen and made a big fuss cooking. The rare meat dishes made the kids eat in silence, their mouths oily from devouring the food. Alicia, while laughing at them, secretly stole glances at me. She wanted to remember me, just as I wanted to forever etch the vast desert into my heart. The meal stretched on unusually long, but as all good things must come to an end, no matter how hard it was, she had to leave. Before departing, she opened her mouth as if to say something, but left without a word, turning and climbing into the back seat of the tractor. I waved back and forth with a group of students at her increasingly distant figure, smiling as I sent off an old friend who had shared in both hardships and joy with me. That night, the wind blew over the lesson plans, revealing a transfer order copy secretly left by Alicia among the teaching materials. I looked at it curiously by the oil lamp, and to my surprise, I noticed pencil-written small words next to the police academy's official seal. "If you change your mind, you can come find me anytime." I tilted my head, folded the transfer order into a paper airplane, and threw it toward the reservoir. I didn't expect that the little plane, without wings, could fly so far and wide. In the cold wind, the bullet shell wind chime rang with a delicate sound, startling the nightingales resting in the fields. I suddenly thought that maybe I should plant some roses in the small garden to the southeast, just as a way to remember this relentless version of myself.